Now
So are we going to start over?
I'm sorry.
Are we going to start the meeting over?
Start over, yes.
Good evening and welcome to the June 24th, 2021 executive session of the Prince George's County Board of Education. I'd like to first introduce Mr. Kevin Kopensky from the Kopensky Law Firm, who will be providing legal counsel services until new counsel, permanent counsel is procured. I'd like to thank Dr. Golson for assisting with facilitating getting this service to the board that needs it to conduct parliamentary and legal counsel services until a permanent service is procured, as I said before. With that, I'd like to, Ms. Williams, would you please read the written statement?
Just 1 second, let me pull it back up. Madam Chair, I move that upon a motion that has been properly recorded and adopted, the Board of Education of Prince George's County meet in closed session pursuant to Section 3-305, General Provisions, Article, Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following. To discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matters that affect one or more specific individuals, to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations, to conduct or discuss an investigative proceeding or actual or possible criminal conduct. This meeting is closed to, I'm sorry, let me jump down. This meeting is closed to invite the Student Board of Education member to attend a closed session as it deliberates an employee matter. The meeting is closed to discuss the employment, assignment, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, discipline of certain employees, performance evaluation of employees over whom this body has jurisdiction, and the related personnel matters. Madam Chair, that is my motion.
Thank you. May I have a second? It has been moved in second that we go into executive session. Is there any discussion? And we will go back to Board Member Ahmed.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Members of the public, what has happened is we started the board meeting and it was live, but it was not recorded. And so I've already given my remarks, but I wanted to just recap what I said before. And that is that I will be voting no on going into executive session today. And that's because I have requested several times over the last few days and weeks that a few items be put on the executive session and that they have been rejected or ignored by the board chair and vice chair. I've been very patient about this, but if we can't discuss and take action on these pressing personnel matters that I've uplifted to the board chair and vice chair and also to my colleagues, then I don't understand why we're meeting. The executive session agenda that we're looking at today does not have as pressing or as time sensitive topics as the ones that I requested to discuss. And there are really only 2 votable items on there for a 2-hour-long meeting. One of those items is the meeting minutes that are incomplete. And so this is not how a $2 billion organization functions. This is not acceptable. And I am also concerned about Mr. Kopensky being on this call. Mr. Kopensky, who authorized you to be on this call?
The chair.
Okay, the board chair, Dr. Miller, authorized you to be on the call. And are you aware that the board voted down your contract to work as interim legal counsel on June 4th, 2021?
I am aware of that, and I'm also aware of the fact that the chair
has the authority, under my understanding, to sign contracts up to $25,000. And as I said earlier, not to rehash this, my name got raised because the chair and the vice chair asked the county attorney for a recommendation on an attorney familiar with parliamentary procedure. I only agreed to do this on a part-time basis until you have a full-time attorney involved. That's the only thing that I was willing to do. And that's the only thing I am willing to do. So, you know, I
Thank you,
don't
Mr.
know what more to
Karpinski.
say about that.
Mr. Karpinski, you had mentioned the county attorney. Are you talking about the Prince George's County government attorney?
Yes.
Okay, so the general counsel for Prince George's County government. Thank you for sharing that. That's news to me. And then the other piece of this too that I had mentioned before that I just want to mention is that there was only one legal counsel firm that was approved by the board to serve as interim legal counsel, and that person or that firm was not yours. And so, Mr. Karpinski, do you expect to get paid for being here today?
Yes,
And by whom?
by the Board of Education.
I'll just put on record once more that the Board of Education did not vote in favor of Mr. Karpinski's contract. And what has been stated here today makes it clear that the person that has authorized Mr. Karpinski to be here is the chair and board leadership and not the board. Thank you.
Board Member Queen.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chairwoman. As Ms. Ahmed has said, we're kind of repeating me and her because we were the only two board members that did get a chance to speak, but it is good for our public and our public should hear what has been said. So as I stated before, I'm a little concerned because we are one board, not just a chair and a vice chair who gets to make decisions, especially being that they were appointed by the county executive. I hold no cut cards when it comes to that, I'm going to say it. But we have to work as one board. So once the board as a majority, no matter what the majority is or who the votes come from, but as a majority has voted on something, then it is upholded. And that's parliamentary procedures and any procedure. So I am a little concerned about that, whether we were happy, and I know Board Member Williams, you're going to come back and say it is issues with the Pew Law firm. I do understand that, but for us to bring in a firm that the board has already voted down, is just my personal opinion, it was not a good thing for leadership to do. If anything, we should have maybe we should look at maybe bringing someone else back or a couple of names back for the board to vote on. My other concern was that, Madam Chair, that you stated, and I had the question as I did earlier to Dr. Golson or Mr. Burnett, that Dr. Golson made the referral in your opening remarks, and you thanked her for helping. And I wanted clarification for Dr. Golson. Did you make this referral? You know, as our CEO normally, as a board, we normally take referrals for you because we hire you as our CEO, and we know that you're going to bring the best thing. But I was just wondering, and I asked this question earlier, and I will ask it again.
Thank you, Board Member Queen. As stated earlier, in my June 2nd email to all board members, I stated that administration would not execute the contract signed by Mr. Stewart. And as shared by Board Vice Chair, Ms. Williams, the chair has the authority to sign contracts under $25,000.
Thank you so very much. I just wanted to make sure that was been stated again, but thank you so very much. That was all I had to say. Thank you.
Board Member Burrows.
Just to clarify, Dr. Golson, you just, at the end of your remark just now, you mentioned that, is it your understanding that the chair has the right to sign contracts under $25,000 after the vote of the board?
First of all, let me just say, I don't feel like I'm in a court of law, so I don't have that policy in front of me. As shared earlier, I am making a statement based on what board leadership just shared. You're going to ask me what policy that is. I don't have that policy in front of me. I'm repeating what was just shared.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for the record. And I guess, is there Mr. Karpinski, Dr. Miller, Ms. Williams, can anyone share what policy or provision in law that gives the chair the right to sign a contract absent a vote of the board?
So let me share again. There are several, well, let me first clarify something for the record. I was elected twice by the constituents of District 9 to represent District 9. And then I was appointed twice by 2 county executives to take on roles for the Board of Education. With my experience in procurement and from the ability to research and read the policies, there is a policy that states that it is the responsibility of the chair to facilitate the work of the board. As a result of very many of the board members who had concerns about us not having legal counsel, and due to the fact that the contract that was voted on by the majority of you all that is currently under review and investigation, that was not the best use of taxpayers' dollars to award that contract. While we're on this call, I will look up the policy and send it out to the entire board so that you all will have the policy that states that contracts under $25,000 do not have to come to the Board of Education for approval. And the authority of the chair to facilitate the work of the board is that of the chair. So I will send that information over to you all so you all can have it. And that's the end of my response to you, Mr. Burrows.
I appreciate that because I'm scouring the policies right now online. I can't find it. There is a policy, board bylaw 9210, that says the chair shall authorize and approve contracts. The Karpinski contract was not authorized or approved by the Board of Education. In fact, on June the 4th, it was moved by Ms. Williams and seconded by Mr. Valentine to accept Mr. Karpinski as our interim legal counsel. The motion failed because it only got 4 votes. And so I'm not, I also want to add that we have a board bylaw 9270, which talks about individual actions by board members. And it's very clear. It says board members shall have no authority to compel action in the name of the Board of Education unless the action has been previously approved by formal resolution. The board shall not be bound in any way by statements or actions on the part of any individual member, except when such action or statement is in pursuance of specific instruction by the board. I think it's a terrible and very dangerous precedent to have an appointed chair attempt to sign off on a contract without the approval, knowledge of the Board of Education. And so I will be voting no on going into executive session.
Board Member Murray.
Thank you. Thank you for citing those board policies. Mr. Burrows, I wanted to cite just one further policy bylaw. 9250 is very explicit. It says the Board of Education may retain counsel to represent it in legal matters. The Board of Education here refers to a majority of voting members on the matter. The policy could not be much clearer in that regard. Dr. Miller has shown a disdain for policies, rules, and regulations regarding her role since she joined the board. Mr. Karpinski, I am disappointed in you as a barred attorney showing up here, knowing, I mean, if you didn't know that you didn't have a valid contract, I mean, you really had to cover your eyes and not look. I spoke with you briefly on the phone and informed you that the board had never voted on your contract. You told me you didn't know that. I asked you to call me back to further discuss. You never did. And so while I can appreciate wanting to help this board move forward, surely you learned in your contract law class that 2 parties have to consent to a contract. Dr. Miller is not a party. The Board of Education is the other party. And so There is no way that you have a valid contract. It's frankly offensive to the citizens of Prince George's County that you logged on here this evening and pretended that you did. And it's very clear this board is not going to operate with a person assigned to us as the attorney when the majority has not voted on that. Only the majority of the board can compel action on behalf of the board. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Murray, I would just say this. I asked whether this board needed some legal advice regarding parliamentary procedure. That's the limited scope of my involvement. So this is not something where I have any great interest in being involved in serving the Board of Education on an extended basis. I was simply filling in until you all fill the position. So
Thank you.
We sit there and to say, quite frankly, regarding my license and comments, like that's just totally unacceptable. I quite frankly don't need this. I'm not interested in being the permanent attorney because I don't have the time to do it. But you had one more meeting before you're supposed to appoint someone. And so I agreed to log on to do that and just that.
I can appreciate your blunt lack of interest in being the board attorney. I think all of the board would appreciate having an interim attorney who wants to be here to represent the citizens of Prince George's County. And as you may or may not know, the board has already approved another attorney. And if it were not for the board chair who refuses to not put in someone that she doesn't personally want in there, we already would have had counsel for some time now. And so the proper process would just be maybe you could ask the board chair to just sign the contract that the majority of the board has voted on for the Pugh Law Firm.
Board member Queen.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair. I just have one question. I noticed that Mr. Kevin Kopinski, I want to say your name right, he stated that he was here for parliamentary procedures to give guidance. So when you made your opening statement, Madam Chairwoman, I'm just wondering why that wasn't stated. I think people may have been a little bit more accepted if you said that, you know what, we just have someone here, a representative who's going to help us with parliamentary procedures. And we just have someone, because it's something that we kind of like, we do need guidance on, but that's not what you stated. You stated that, he would be an attorney. So I'm just kind of questioning. I hear him saying that he wanted to help, and I appreciate you wanting to help because we definitely need help with parliamentary procedures. But I think that's not what was stated here, and that's one of the biggest issues it seems like some of my colleagues are having.
To correct, thank you, Dr. Golson, for assisting with the facilitation of these services that board members need to conduct parliamentary and any legal counsel services until a permanent service is procured. So I did mention parliamentary.
Okay. So it's for parliamentary procedures, not as a board attorney. Because I think you threw that in there also.
I did throw that in there.
Okay, that's what seems.
I said as needed.
Okay.
Board member Adam Stafford. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you. So I just, want to speak to the members of the public. First of all, I just want to apologize that this meeting wasn't recorded. It was broadcasted but not recorded, and that's definitely not the way that we want to operate. I am concerned as to why this meeting wasn't being recorded, especially with the nature of what we're discussing. I'm sorry that you have to witness these displays of pettiness, quite frankly. Month after month, our board leadership demonstrates a commitment to halting in general our public procedures. And the facts are very simple. We have to go into a private session in order to discuss important issues that affect everyday people, their jobs. This is halting that process. And so our board leadership is refusing to sign a contract that was voted on and approved. That's basically simply what's happening. And, due to this not wanting to sign that contract, they signed another contract with the Karpinski Group that was declared void. initially by our school's administration. So then after the board voted for this new law firm, they decided that even after that contract was voided, they decided to still work with this law firm around sort of what the board has voted on. So I don't feel comfortable going into a meeting discussing the private business of PGCPS employees really without having, proper representation that has been voted on by the Board of Education in compliance with the policies and bylaws that you just heard. And this is just another example of our board leadership skirting around policies to do things that they want to do, quite frankly.
Board Member Williams.
Thank you. According to bylaw 9210, the chair shall preside over all meetings, sign, authorize, or approve contracts and other documents on behalf of the board. Perform such duties as prescribed by law, and the law that it references is Maryland Annotated Code 3-1004. So the law gives the chair the authority to facilitate this work of the board, to make sure that we are staying in compliance with the law and make sure that we are not doing anything outside of our fiduciary duties that would get us into trouble. We have already had several sightings by the Maryland State that said that we have been in violation of actions that are outside of what is legally, that we can do legally. So in order to keep us out of hot water, the chair has to facilitate this. Now, if we want to continue to be cited and going outside of the law, then that is what you all are authorizing yourselves to do. But the chair, as the facilitator of the work of this board, will not allow us to do that. So with this last meeting, as everyone sees in the agenda, there are no legal issues that are up for approval at this moment in time. So the only work that Kevin Karpinski will be providing us, as he is an attorney, he is legal counsel, he has the authority, he has the ability to give us support on parliamentary procedures. That is what he will be doing. So if you all vote to go into executive session, we can proceed with the work of the board that impacts several individuals in the administration. And by not voting to go into executive session, we will not be doing the work of the board. And so I just beg you to allow us to go into executive session, because we've already missed 2 executive sessions because we could not vote to go in. We could not get an approval to go into executive session. We've already done that twice in the last quarter. So I just implore you all to allow us to go into executive session so that we can do the work of the board.
Thank you, Board Member. Board Member Valentine.
Thank you. I wanted to just come back to a comment that Board Member Ahmed mentioned in her opening remarks as regards to agenda setting and adding. Chair, can you just outline just the process for getting items put on the agenda and anything that was not done, and to ensure that I agree with my colleague about the importance of personnel matters. But I just want the public to be clear that we do have a process for agenda setting, whether that process was followed or not.
Are you asking me or Ms. Ahmed?
I'm asking you, Madam Chairwoman.
The process is that I have requested that anything that board members want on the agenda to be submitted at least 2 weeks in advance with proper notification and information. Board Member Ahmed has made requests at the last minute. She has failed on several occasions to present her information in a timely manner. And when she presents it, she sends emails, she sends the emails out, and she calls for the rest of her, the board members to chime in. But the policy, well, I'm not even gonna say policy. the process that we have followed is to submit whatever item for that has to go on the agenda needs to be presented to the chair at least 2 weeks in advance. This has not been done.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have, Madam
That's
Chair.
the board
Madam Chair.
member, I'm trying to remember who was first. Ahmed. Oh, no, she just spoke.
I can go again.
Madam Chair.
Yeah,
The 3 board members that have their hands raised have met the limit of discussion. We have 2 rounds and everyone who has their hand up have already spoken twice on this subject, on
okay.
this motion.
So are we
Point of
calling-
order. Well, point of order, board member Stafford has only spoken once, and I think board member Mayor should be able to respond to the comments that Chairwoman Miller just said. I believe that's according to Robert's rules as well.
Mr. Kapinski, is that according to Robert's rules? Is he still here or did he leave?
Yes, yeah, I'm still here. Yes, why don't you let Board Member Ahmed address the board?
Board Member Ahmed.
Thank you. I want to make sure that it's very clear to the public that I have sent several emails in regards to one of the items that I'm referring to the board chair. Madam Chair, it is not my fault if you don't check those emails, but I have sent multiple emails, and colleagues, you have been CC'd on some of them because the chair has not responded to those. And so I just want to make that very clear that I have followed the process and the process has failed. And so it has come to this. I just want to make that very clear. I also wanted to ask about this contract with Mr. Karpinski that the chair has signed. Is this the same contract that has already been that we voted down, or is it a different contract, and can the board get that contract?
Are you asking me a question?
Dr. Miller or Ms. Williams, either.
It is the exact same contract that was presented to you all several weeks ago.
All right, thank you. And then Ms. Williams, you had quoted from the policy, and the policy says, as you have read, that the chair shall sign authorized or approved contracts. This contract with Mr. Karpinski was not authorized or approved by the Board of Education. I think that's what is this debate is being about right now. And so I wanted to make that clear for the public. Ms. Williams, you also had mentioned that you have there are citations against the Board of Education by the state. You and Dr. Miller have not shared those state appeals with the body. It is our responsibility to know what is going on. If there are appeals facing this body, and that is very concerning to me as well. So those are just a couple of points that I want to say. I also want to say this is my second round because the first round I had spoken, and the second time I spoke was because we had to redo it. So this can be considered my second round. Thank you.
Thank you. And as it says, perform such duties as prescribed by law. The law gives the chair the authority to legally facilitate the work of this board. The issues that are currently under review at the state include several Open Meetings Act compliance complaints that have been sent up by constituents in the community. And then there are appeals that are under review by the State Board of Education, and everyone is aware of all of those appeals. Mr. Roger Thomas has been facilitating those on our behalf because he is the attorney of record. And all of those, you all are aware of all of those items that have been presented. I believe you asked.
Documentation, yes, and that documentation was
Yes.
not provided to the board. So if that could be provided to the board, that would be very helpful for us to know what are the appeals, what is being filed, specifically, and what are the responses that are
I
being
believe
filed on
that,
behalf of the board?
I believe that
on
Ms.
that.
Winston provided you all, and I thought it was, I know it was definitely sent to you. And I thought it was in a follow-up item that was sent to the entire board. Now I will confirm and I will send it if the entire board did not get that entire list from Michelle Winston, who is our internal auditor, who is also looking at items. Then I'll send that list to the entire board. But I thought that
Yes,
she
please.
sent it to the entire board as a follow-up.
Thank you. She had sent us a hotline complaint. She had not sent us what are the appeals that have been filed against the board and what has our former board legal counsel, what were those responses that he had provided to the on behalf of the board. Those items were not given. So if you could, Ms. Williams, that would be really great.
Absolutely.
As I'd requested in the past to you directly. Thank you.
I'd like to inject at this point that it was a public announcement that.
Point
this
of order,
board-
if the chair wants to engage in debate, does she have to recuse herself from the chair? That's what parliamentary procedure states. My understanding, Mr. Karpinski.
The chair can certainly clarify a point of discussion.
As I was stating, this board was given in public session notification of its violation of the Open Meetings Act. Each board member received a notification from the chair and from the policy director requesting their signature on the form to indicate acknowledgement of receipt of that document. We needed 8 signatures and we did receive 8. Some members refused to sign. So to make a correction, yes, this board has been cited and it has been made public. It is public knowledge. And you have been notified on several occasions. So I just want the
A
public.
point of clarification, this is not the item I'm talking about. I'm talking about additional items that have come before the board that we are not aware of.
Well, I don't know what you're
Thank
not
you.
aware of, Ms. Board Member Ahmed. So we can talk about that on an individual basis, or we can continue this discussion in the general public. I
No,
just
yeah,
don't know because you're making these allegations publicly that I find that are unfounded. And so I'm not going to sit here and debate and take up the public's time with that. But I have all of the emails that, and some of them that you have sent to me, which I feel have been threatening, bullying is the term you use, and demeaning to my role as the chair. And so with that being said, I'm not going to go back and forth with you tonight. I have done that in emails and then I stopped because.
Point of order, Mr.
I am
Karpinski, is this
here
still
for the-
clarification? Is this
Excuse
still
me,
It
under?
sounds
what you
like this
gave?
is not clarification at this point. It sounds like this is something else.
No,
Which
it
is
sounds
fine.
like something else that you're presenting. With that, I'm going to close.
Well,
this
let me just
discussion
clarify
and move
let me
on.
just clarify the
You're out
reason
of
I'm
order. You're out of order.
You are out of order. I think it's been very clear that you have to recuse yourself if you're trying to debate on a matter like this.
I'm not debating. I just said I'm closing this issue.
Mr. Karpinski, can you weigh in here, please?
I think Dr. Miller has completed her statement, and I believe Mr. Murray, I forget which one of you raised your hands first, but this would be your second round.
Okay.
This is, I saw Ms. Adams Stafford first.
Yeah, so, Board Member Vice Chair Williams, you mentioned that the board chair can, act on behalf of the board, but I don't think that you're mentioning that the chair has to sign authorized and approved contracts on behalf of the board. And that is Maryland Annotated Code 3-1004. That is something that we continually keep coming back to, something that she and you both refuse to do. I want to go back to this concept about the process for getting items added to the agenda, the items that really matter for everyday working people in this county. That's an arbitrary, we can't cite a policy because there is no policy on this. It's a arbitrary process. And so here's my question. There was an item added to the open agenda, which is going to happen at 7 o'clock. And I just want to know when that item was requested to be on the agenda, item 4.1. We just received notification. Can someone provide some clarification on that? When was that item requested to be put on the agenda?
That item was requested to be put on the agenda, I believe it was June 9th. And the work that it took to get that information put on the board, the backup documentation was presented to us
Yesterday.
the other day.
Yesterday.
But we were
Right.
very aware.
And that's,
we
I'm
were very
sorry,
aware
that's
that it
where
was,
we have an issue, because this item was asked to be put on the agenda yesterday. And so it's very arbitrary when items are placed on the agenda. It depends on who the board chair and the vice chair want to have items on the agenda. It's very sad. If you're going to have a policy and you're going to have a procedure, please follow it. And don't use it indiscriminately when you feel like it or when you want to. That is what causes a lot of these problems, because you will pick and choose what items and when you'll add to the agenda. And that is what I'm glad that we're able to sort through just now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment.
Oh, Board Member Williams, were you saying, Board Member Murray?
Dr. Miller, I believe you've already signed this contract for legal services. Is that correct?
No, I have not signed it.
Who signed the contract?
I didn't have to sign it. It was done through the correct and legal procurement process. And since you asked that question, I find it quite interesting that you're presenting to the public something.
Point of order, is this debate?
Actually, if you could just let her respond, Ms. Adam Stafford, I'm actually very interested in this answer, but I appreciate it.
I find it quite interesting that we're having this discussion about a legally vetted a contract that was procured, as opposed to the contract that you, board members.
Okay, thank you. If we could just keep it to this contract. So have two parties signed this contract?
You have made reference to, excuse me. You
No,
have
it's not
made
excuse me, I have
reference
the
to a
floor.
contract that the board.
It was a yes or no
approved.
question that I asked you.
No, you don't tell me yes or no.
I
You
asked
want
you a
an
yes or no
answer,
question.
I will give you an answer.
Mr.
But I'm not in a
Karpinski,
court
who
of
has the
law.
floor?
And point of order, you are out of order because I was
That's
addressing
actually why
your
we've been trying to
question.
bring a lawyer on here. You've been struggling with who is and is not out of order. So you have not signed the contract. Have two parties signed the contract? My understanding is that two parties, Mr. Karpinski as well as the board, would need to enter into a contract for him to be here.
So again, procurement is not a one size fit all. Everything just check the box. There are criteria that must be met, and depending upon how this acquisition is done, that is the procedure that you follow. Because this contract is below $25,000, a requisition is the only thing that is necessary, and that requisition has been completed.
So who signed the contract on behalf of the board?
We have a contract signed by our vendor, Mr. Karpinski, and we to authorize payment. Now, similar to if we were to, there are no
You are free.
for
frozen.
travel services.
Ms.
There
Williams?
are, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go back. You were.
There,
Yes.
there are no contracts that are presented to the board below $25,000. This includes travel services. This includes catering. This includes any service that is under $25,000, in which the board chair has the authority to procure through procurement and have that process vetted, and it is then approved to move forward. And that is the same process that is moving here. Now, the discussion is around legal services. That's one thing. The other part of this that you all continue to sort of gloss over is that this is a contract below $25,000 that does not have to be presented to the board for approval. Now, if you can present to me any catering contract, any travel service contract, any media that we get that has been presented to the board, then please show me. That has never happened before. So we have followed the proper process to procure this service for the Karpinski firm to provide us with support on this very last meeting. And so we have been discussing this now for an hour. And I would like to call the vote.
I believe that under $25,000 figure refers to the chief executive officer's power, not the chair of the board. I think we're conflating the two.
That is incorrect. There is no procurement process that is separated for administration or the Board of Education. We follow, similar to how we follow the HR processes, we follow the procurement processes for Prince George's County Public Schools. There is no separate procurement process for how we do business in PGCPS.
Okay. we had a
To
call.
reiterate that my last closing remarks, Dr. Miller, is that two parties have not signed this contract. No one from the board has signed this contract. In my view, and I think most attorneys with a contract law background would be that we do not have a contract at all between the two parties, and it would be wholly inappropriate for Mr. Karpinski to represent the board or be paid in any manner. Thank you.
It has been called.
My hand's up,
question
Dr. Miller.
call.
Excuse me, my hand's up. Before Ms. Williams called the question, my hand was up.
Mr. Burrows.
Mr. Karpinski, do you have a signed contract with the Prince George's County Board of Education? Oh, you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I have signed, my office has signed a contract.
Have you received a copy of a contract with a representative from the Board of Education or from the school system?
Mr. Burrows, we did at one point. I'm not sure when exactly that was and who had signed it, quite candidly. You know, I have, quite frankly, I have some clients I don't have any contracts with. So again, I was, you know, in terms of addressing parliamentary issues, I agreed to go ahead and do this tonight. You all are now at an hour. I mean, I don't know why you need someone as a parliamentarian. You're here now at an hour. You haven't even voted on whether to go and meet an executive session. So, you know, that was the extent of what I agreed to do.
Okay, and you know, I hope you could understand the concern of the board that we voted down your contract respectfully. It was nothing personal. I don't know you, you don't know me.
Right.
And then to see you on here is very concerning with the expectation of being paid. So you have not received a contract that was signed by the chair or vice chair?
I don't believe I have, no. Quite frankly, my role was so limited in this, you know, the reality is that it wouldn't even dawn on me to really be that worried about, you know, a contract or when I was going to get paid or how I was going to get paid. This is so trivial and minuscule in my overall practice that it really, I would not focus, quite frankly, I wouldn't focus an hour on it. I certainly wouldn't focus 5 minutes on it. I wouldn't focus an hour on it.
I guess, Mr. Karpinski, since you're here, what are our legal options as it relates to the debate that we're having right now? I mean, do we need to go to court? I mean, you know, what needs to happen? Because, you know, I believe something illegal has occurred. The law is clear that there are 7 votes required in order for a motion of the board to pass. The vice chair said earlier that she was going to search the policies to read where the chair could sign contracts less than $25,000 without board approval. We still haven't heard it. Every policy that I have seen, I've read open here on the record, and you heard me read them. And so I was sitting here trying to find the authority, and I can't find it. You know, I asked you, I know you're filling in just parliamentary procedure, but you know, you were not able to provide it. The chair was not able to provide it. I asked the superintendent wasn't able to provide it. I asked the vice chair, no one's able to provide it. And I'm worried that if we proceed, it would set a very dangerous precedent, because it sounds like it is the belief of the chair and vice chair that they could sign $24,999 contracts all day long. So that's very, you know, I am concerned, and I hope you can understand that.
Yeah. I understand it. And my suggestion, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to you or to any other member of the board, but it's readily apparent to me that this board is entirely dysfunctional. And I would suggest that you work very hard on getting a full-time lawyer in here that everyone can work with, because you all do need some legal guidance. And that should be what should be your goal between now and August.
Thank you, Mr. Karpinski. Have you finished, Board Member Burrows?
Yes, I'll just conclude. Thank you.
For the public, I apologize for the length of time that it's taken, but one important matter has not been brought out since these allegations have been made by board members in terms of the chair's duties and responsibilities. The board did approve a contract. The board, 7 board members approved a contract. It was signed by a board member who was not authorized to sign that contract. With that, it put the board in a litigious position.
Dr. Miller, I apologize. Point of order. Someone called the question.
Yes, they called the question, and I'm giving the public some information. Yes, you want to cut me off, but yet you want to.
No, I'm not cutting you off. I barely spoke tonight. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just a point of order.
I understand point of order, and I'm going to conclude my statement. Yes, the question has been called. Is this a point of
Personal privilege you're taking right now?
The question has been called. We will take a vote. All in favor? Call the roll, Ms. Young, please.
Mrs. Adams Stafford,
Abstain.
Mrs. Ahmed,
No.
Ms. Boozer Struthers,
Yes.
Mr. Burrows,
No.
Mr. Harris,
Abstain.
I'm sorry,
Abstain.
Ms. Jackson,
Abstain.
Mr. Montero,
Abstain.
Mr. Murray,
No.
Ms. Queen,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
There are 5 yes, 3 no's, and 3 abstain.
The motion doesn't carry. Thank you to the public for sitting in, and we will see you at 7 p.m. for our public meeting.